Okay, Richard, good to catch up. We're sort of talking this morning for this debate around the sustainability conference that's taking place in London, and we wanted to try and talk to you particularly about your role, because obviously you're one of the founding partners of the sort of the whole conference and the exhibition. But for those who don't know Encirc, I mean, I must admit, I've been doing some research for the purpose of today, and I didn't actually fully appreciate just the scale of the business now because of all the various different bits that have been bolted into it. Could you just give us an introduction to yourself, obviously, and then how the actual business works?
Yeah, no problems at all. Encirc's ever evolving. Encirc's now been around since 2017. Prior to that, it was actually Quinn Glass. So if you like, the roots of Encirc is glass manufacture, starting over in Northern Ireland. Then went and built a significant facility in just outside Chester in Elton. And I suppose, yeah, when you talk about scale, the stats of the furnaces there actually have the world's largest glass container furnace up in Elton. Through the hole in the wall in Elton, we then have a beverage facility with five high-speed filling lines. And then Elton's evolution continued last year with the acquisition of the park. So if you like, the supply chain element, which was formerly Accolade Wines' and the facility in Bristol. So Encirc now sits there with production capability of 900,000 tons of glass, beverage filling capability over 400 million litres. Actually, 1 in 3 glass bottles made in the UK come from Encirc. Wow. And we're currently, I suppose, filling now over 70% of the wine that's imported into the UK. And yeah, we're one of the founding partners because at the base of all that, sustainability is something that's very much the core of what we are. And I'm then very lucky to be the managing director of the beverage part of Encirc Beverages.
Brilliant. It's in a nutshell, you're almost like taking wine literally from producer as far away as, I don't know, New Zealand or Chile, and then you're bringing it in, managing it, bottling it, storing it, and then sending it out to your customers as well. Is that right? Isn't that right?
Yeah, we very much talk about our 360 model, or we're actually calling it a 360 ecosystem now, because yeah, totally. So we work with the shipping lines to try and help the flow of the product into the country. But then, yeah, we'll fill it, we'll buy the dry goods, we'll warehouse it, we'll help design it, and we'll then ultimately move it into the retailer. And in the middle of that, we'll make the glass. I suppose the other stat or fact that we're incredibly proud of is that we're on a journey to make a net zero glass bottle by 2030. And we had the honor last week of hosting the Prime Minister, Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, and Ed Miliband, the Secretary of State, who actually came into our facility, stood in the middle of our bottling lines last week and announced their £22 billion investment in carbon capture. And very much spoke, they picked our facility, I believe, in our business because of what we're doing from a sustainable standpoint. Mm-hmm. HyNet, which is one of the investments the government is doing, will ultimately be directly linked through to our glass furnaces. So our furnaces will be powered by hydrogen. So that's certainly another feather in our cap that we're incredibly proud of, that the government now see us as that leading sort of company to make those announcements at.
Well, that is some endorsement. And I think also it also just captures there a little bit how complex the sustainability issue is, if it's not really not say an issue. Sustainability is, I mean, in terms of like everybody who's sort of involved in the wine supply chain has their own part to play in it. But I suppose you're multi-part. You're in every single part of the supply chain. So, I mean, just from your point of view, in terms of looking at I mean, you mentioned there the opportunities going forward. I mean, what would you say as a business now with the park involved? What are the opportunities for you in terms of is it really a case of trying to get more and more businesses to work in that kind of more 360-degree way and showing the way forward to what you can do?
Yeah, I think it's interesting that we had a conference a couple of weeks ago, and Miles Beale from WSTA spoke, and he put a stat out there that's actually slightly depressing, and then we'll get sort of upbeat again. The amount of bulk wine imported into the UK has actually declined over the last 3 or 4 years. So about 40% of the wine in the UK at the moment is imported in bulk. Now, Encirc Beverages, we want to change that. We've got the capacity. We've just put actually another high-speed bottling line in. So when we talk about sustainability, the shipping in bulk is a 40% reduction in terms of footprint of that as opposed to finished goods. So there's a big tick there. Through our supply chain, you're right. When you get to the glass furnace, I think the bit that's fascinating, and it's something that I've learned more since becoming part of Encirc, is there's a couple of bits that go into glass. Glass is a significant carbon footprint at the moment. So we talk about two things. We're talking about a furnace of the future. Cullet, recycled glass is huge in that. So the more recycled glass you can get in, the less intense the energy that you need in terms of using virgin materials. So you're right. It's quite complex when we talk sustainability. So everything from curbside recovery, collection versus your DRS, to actually then saying, right, once you even have your cullet, how are you going to fire that furnace? And the furnace of the future is very much going to be an amalgamation of hydrogen. It's going to be more electricity so that we ultimately get to a net zero position. And that's the holy grail. Now, between now and 2030, we'll get there. The announcement of the government on hydrogen last week was a massive step on that. But there's still, for me, Richard, a significant discussion that we need to have as an industry and around recovering our glass. Yeah. We are incredibly poor at the moment with actually getting the glass that's used and creating a closed loop back to our furnaces. The impact of doing that is huge.
Because I think, rightly or wrongly, there's been a sort of debate around glass has sort of come to the fore over the last, 2-3 years, and lots of people, very, very high profile, talking about the weight of glass, and there's a lot of big focus on that. And I suppose the glass industry, I suppose, has taken a bit of a kicking, to be fair, in terms of, its role, and yet, 99% of all wine we drink is in glass. So, but I suppose in a way, because your whole core of your business is clearly glass. You're having to do everything you possibly can, and as you mentioned, the net zero. I mean, do you feel that there's a sort of a perception versus reality issue as well that the industry needs to sort of address, and it's up to the industry to be better educated about what's actually happening with glass, rather than necessarily throwing around that bottle issue as being.
No, I agree. And I think it's really important for people to recognize there's a glass industry. The glass industry recognizes it needs to change. It needs to find a different way to power the furnaces. And I think we would approach that in two ways. We're going to find a way by 2030, and we see that as a very realistic time frame to be in a position with certain developments, rebuilding of our furnaces, hydrogen, electricity. In the meantime, you're right. We can lightweight glass. And I think there is still that educational piece of heavyweight glass doesn't mean better quality. We passionately believe glass is the best format. It's inert. It's the best in terms of looking after wine. That's why people use it. I think the industry needs to unite on glass weight at the moment. And, I've been part of a branded business before. I'm now very much independent. And I've seen branded businesses not want to make a move on a brand because they're worried about what their competition's going to do. Mm-hmm. There's a bit where you've got to get everyone together and go, actually, guys, come on, let's lower this glass weight. Let's get down. So we, at the moment, are about to bring a 300-gram bottle into the market. Now, the lowest we've got at the moment is 330, but still our customers. Now, we fill 8 of the top 10 wine brands in the UK. We're filling 15 of the top 20. Wow. Still, over half the wine we fill doesn't use the lightest weight glass.
Yeah.
So there's an element of as an industry, we need to recognize at the moment that there are things we could do here and now. Glass lightweighting for me is huge. Collecting the color is the other one. And we need to get that right whilst we work on designing this furnace that's ultimately going to get us to a net zero place.
I think the interesting thing is that, as you say, that debate is very much alive. I suppose a good thing is more and more people are signing up to this sort of bottle accord, aren't they? And they like bottle accord, and there's not more bigger players. And but I mean, I hear all the time. I talk to branded players, and they say, "Oh, we're going to put this bottle in a lightweight," and they play a big focus on that. But then they kind of like quietly don't mention all the other wines in their range which aren't. So as you say, I think that's partly why the sustainability conference and exhibition really has a great place to sort of bring the industry together to I suppose address many of these issues. I mean, but clearly the focus for you has to be almost thinking 10, 15, 20 years ahead. You need to be thinking, I suppose, what you're doing right now, but you also need to be thinking, the next generation and what's going to happen next.
Yes, I mean, Richard, we alluded to earlier, there's all that bit on the glass. So there's a huge amount of work going on that, but there's lots of other stuff we can do here and now. So when you look at us within Encirc, every single point, so whether it's moving to 26,000 litre bags of wine in a container as opposed to 24. So now over half the wine that comes in to our facilities are now having 26,000 litre bags, so getting sort of 8% more in. And there's movements there. When I then go into the packaging, whether it's cases, if you have a look at the moment, the amount of ink that is wasted, design that is wasted on cases that never see the supermarket shelf. There's a real movement can be done there. All screw caps at the moment are imported into the UK. We've just got to a point where we're having a facility built for us with one of our partners. So in 2026, we'll have a dedicated screw cap facility in the UK. That gives us the opportunity to go, actually, a screw cap at the moment is a good old 30 mil wide by 60 mil. The length of it has always been to hide the fill height. Now, the biggest footprint of a screw cap is the raw material within it. We can have discussions now that say, why don't we have a 30 by 50 or a 30 by 40? Let's design the glass and the screw cap and make an impact on the footprint. So we very much are approaching at the moment, whether it's product design or whether it's that end bit of distribution. The distribution network now of us doing consolidated loads across out there. Go back even 5-6 years, we would have trucks leaving our sites with 15, 16 pallets on. Everything is now full. Everything is up there at the 24 sort of pallet. So for me, it's about attacking every part of the supply chain to ultimately lower that overall impact. Glass has the biggest impact, but we shouldn't miss the other opportunities.
Yeah, I guess the business that you've evolved into, I suppose, means now that you are, I suppose, your modus operandi isn't just the glass; it's the whole supply chain. So it makes you as a business more sustainable, but also makes what you're doing more sustainable because you have to be involved in all those different areas.
Yeah, every one of our customers values sustainability. Used to be something people would discuss. It's now something that people value and that they want. So people before would just come along and they'd want to negotiate with you on a fill fee. Like it would all be about how much you're going to charge us to fill the product. Now they are interested in actually, what's the footprint? How can you help us with product design? How can you help that distribution? So yeah, our offering as Encirc Beverages is 100% about saying, we'll help you with the flow with the shipping. So, in terms of just our storage, we actually take the bags out now of the shipping containers instead of them going off somewhere else. We take them out, we recycle them, we work on that element. We've introduced everyone loves to talk about AI. We actually introduced machine learning in our facility about 5 years ago, where now we've got our wine loss from when this site, the park, opened sort of 15 years ago. Our wine loss is a quarter of what it was back then. And that's due to using technology. So again, when you talk about footprint, how do you improve the yield? Let's not go and waste the wine as you go through the process. So I suppose what I'm trying to put across, Richard, we are trying to attack every single part, whether it's yield, whether it's what we're using in the first instance. And we've got a breadth of a business now that's able to do that.
And where do you see the focus in terms of your customers and your suppliers? I mean, do you feel obviously the onus is on clearly the big retailers and the big wine producers? I mean, is that a case of, you talk about collaboration? Is that how can that work better, do you think, in terms of making sure both sides are like all on the same page on this?
No, it's a great question. So we did something that we see as a bit of an industry first 3 weeks ago. So we put all our suppliers, we put all our customers and the retailers in the same room. We had over 100 businesses together in London a couple of weeks ago. And we had a number of discussion forums, but we ultimately got to a workshop where we got everyone to say, what are the biggest issues the industry is facing?
Right.
And how do we unite to take them on? I historically worked for Accolade Wines, who were the #1 wine company in the UK by scale. Even as the biggest wine company, you can't generate enough change by yourself. You have to do it as an industry. And that's what we're trying to do. So on your point, the suppliers into our business are outstanding. They are ready to go. It's about working together. So my favorite example at the moment is all wine pallets in the UK go into retailers with plastic shrink wrap around it. Smurfit Westrock, our corrugate partner, are putting a machine in Q1 next year. We've done a lot of trials where we're going to have brown paper wrap. Originally, everyone would say, oh, the retailers won't accept that. They want to be able to see the product. It won't go through their warehouses. It won't work, Rich. What we've now got, because we've managed to showcase this as an idea, I've got branded business wanting to work with us, retailers wanting to work with us. In Q1 next year, we will push product into the market that has no plastic in its primary packaging, in its secondary, and in its tertiary. No other categories, soft drinks, anyone else is doing that at the moment. So for me, that's true collaboration of taking supplier, brand, and retailer and saying, here we are. And we need to find other things like that we can go forwards, because, and this event we had, we're now going to run a number of workshops. So the thing they voted for, Richard, that they wanted to work on most was do more with less. Now, okay, that can be quite a broad topic, but that's ultimately sustainability. That's ultimately there. We're now going to have a number of workshops with about 50 people from that 330 to start saying, right, what are the things actually? And that's going to be a mixture of suppliers, brands, and retailers with Encirc Beverages there in the middle. What are we going to go and do and not compete with each other, not have this, or what's that other branded player doing? So now the industry has to, there's a bit of decline, volumes are down. So I think we're at just a perfect time to really unite and work across the industry.
That's fascinating. I mean, I didn't actually know you'd done that when I asked that question. So it's brilliant to hear that you've done that. And I think, in a way, it's a brilliant place to finish this conversation. I mean, we could talk all day, but I mean, with the sustainability in drinks event, that's essentially what that event's all about, is bringing people together. And it's great that conversation is already taking place. Three people like yourselves anyway. So thanks, Richard, for your time, and I look forward to
I'm looking forward to the event next week, and it's congratulations to you guys putting it on, and we need to keep doing it.
Brilliant. Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you. Cheers.